Hey, Mistakes listeners, this is Dave, and welcome back to episode 34. This week we watched Avengers Assemble. We recorded this episode as kind of a part 2 of our Halloween special. Basically, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter if you want, and you can like us on Facebook. Twitter, of course, is at Parent Mistakes, and Facebook is at Parenting Mistakes. Hey, glad to have you listening to us, and Mistakes listeners, enjoy the show.
So I got another quiz for you, Dave.
Why do you keep on giving me a pop quiz? You know, I told you last time I'm just terrible at testing.
I don't think you are. I think you just have that in your head.
Right, that makes me terrible at testing.
No. I think you do just fine at testing.
Okay.
Okay, so in the previous episode we were discussing Halloween.
Yeah.
So let me ask you.
So this is Halloween bonus 2.
Well, bonus. We'll make this, by the time people listen to this, it's going to be post-Halloween. So we'll just make this post-Halloween.
Okay, this is the day after, even though our Halloween special episode is the day after.
Yeah, it continues on.
So okay, I'm ready.
We have talked a number of times about when, because a lot of parenting is timing, right? In terms of when is your child old enough to do certain things.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or reciprocally, when is it time to be done with certain things?
Oh,
like,
interesting.
when are you too old to...
Like you and I playing Transformers in 9th grade.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, how old is too old to go trick-or-treating?
You know, I think kids eventually evolve out of it, right?
Well, okay, but if you were... Assuming they don't evolve, they don't just self-select out, because you're right, at some point kids, they sort of move on to the party phase.
Yes.
Like they'll still dress up, and adults will dress up.
Okay, so you're talking about actually hitting the streets and
Hit
going
the
door to door
with a bag, wearing a costume, or in some cases, which, and a little self-disclosure, when we are home for Halloween, which we're not always, sometimes we'll go do something with friends, or we'll go to a party or something, but when we have been home and we've handed out candy, I will, in a semi-good-natured way, give older children a bad time if I perceive them to be in high school, particularly because...
You had to see the shock on my face.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Kids that show up at my house wearing no costume, and then they grabbed like a plastic grocery bag on their way out.
And the guy got a cardboard sign saying, I'm hungry?
No, nothing.
Okay,
like, not even a sign.
Not even a sign, okay.
They just put a sweatshirt on. Or they're just...
Oh.
Or the girls will just grab some black eyeliner and just...
Yeah, I'm a zombie.
Yeah, I'm a zombie, or I'm the evil version of a lazy high school student. And then they'll just show up, and they just want candy, and they just want to be walking the streets. Okay, so if you picked a number...
That could not be... That's not very... Okay.
If you picked an age. Now, your kids are younger, so you're a little ways from this. You're just getting into the trick-or-treating phase. When would you foresee, if you had to pick right now?
Well, okay, so I can only pull from personal experience, but I would say 12 or the end of 6th grade.
Okay.
Possibly, I mean, really, if the kid's really into it in junior high, it's going to be really tough to say no to that scenario, although we don't let our kids trick-or-treat in our neighborhood. We go to a different neighborhood. So it might be a little bit simpler for me to say, well, actually, we're going to go to the party this year, and we're not going to trick-or-treat up at Grandma and Grandpa's. So that's what I would say. That's about the time I quit, and it seemed right.
Okay. Good information.
So,
Come on, these quizzes I give you, they're always open-ended anyway, so you shouldn't have to worry about them.
This better go somewhere, Todd.
Well, it's just a question, because there isn't like a really obvious thing. I mean, if a bunch of college students went out and went trick-or-treating, it's not like they get arrested.
No, they wouldn't.
And it's just kind of a strange aspect of it.
Well, how many college students do you see coming to your door asking for candy?
I don't, but
Okay.
I would imagine.
So you've seen 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds out there with
Mm,
mascara
that's
walking
tough
the
to call.
streets.
I have seen kids that I would judge to be in high school.
Maybe they have
Maybe
they have a
on-
growth problem. Maybe they're
It's possible.
Yeah.
Probably on the younger end of high school. But I don't know. You and I remember. I mean, when we were in high school, as you mature, you do act a little more mature at times. But then there are moments where you do embrace or sort of say, "Hey, let's go do something that we used to do just for fun."
Yeah, that happens in college.
Right.
That
So,
happens a lot in college. I think there's a little bit of a reversion that happens in college. I'm trying to capture some of my youth, which is why Tiny Toons was so successful at that time.
correct.
Okay, but here's the, what? It's not an easy statement that you're making. My wife dressed up at work yesterday. She dressed
Yes,
up as
and I-
Anna, and her sister dressed up as Elsa, and
Nice.
it was like the full, like they look like them, right?
Yeah.
So Halloween has not ended for my wife.
Correct.
But she's not trick-or-treating. So that's what you're pointing out, is that when do you stop trick-or-treating? But
Right.
it gets fuzzy because everybody continues to do Halloween, which in the 80s, as I recall, there was just a time when it's not a parent thing, it's strictly a kid thing. My mother and dad would never be caught wearing a costume. My mother and dad. Did I say that right? Yes. My father
Yes.
and mother.
And the same for my parents. I can't
Yeah.
think of my. Well, that's not true. My parents actually started wearing costumes after we all left the house.
And they started trick-or-treating?
No, but I mean,
Okay. Well, then you
they
got a
never
problem,
dressed
dude.
up. When we were kids, they never dressed up.
If your parents came trick-or-treating to your house, would you turn them away?
Well, I wouldn't expect them to actually be trick or treating, but I mean, if they came dressed up, because I will see parents dressed up.
Oh, and they're asking for food?
No, they don't ask
Oh,
for
okay.
food. Like,
All right.
we have a fairly, I don't know if you say a nice neighborhood, but a fairly active neighborhood on
Sure.
Halloween. A lot of kids around. It's nice. It's fun.
No, I've been to your neighborhood. It's nice.
Yeah, the family will come down the street. The parents may or may not be dressed up. The parents will stop on the sidewalk. The kids will walk up to the door. Or in
Yes.
our case, we often will set up a little fire pit in our front yard and sit out there with chairs and our bucket of candy. And
Yep.
so they'll walk up to us and they'll say trick or treat, and I'll hand them candy, and my wife will say something about their costume, and off they go.
Is that what you're doing tonight?
We are going to go trick or treat a couple places, and with some friends, and then we'll probably come back and sit in front.
Okay, right on.
You're ruining the illusion of the podcast because this isn't going to post for a few days, so now it's going to seem like it's live, and then it's post-dated. But anyway, it is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well,
That's okay.
I guess at episode 34, we're still kind of podcast noobs. Sorry, we're in it. We're in it, right?
We're in it. Yes.
Yeah. It's not a live show.
Just
But yes.
imagine it's the present and the future,
Yes.
just like the Avengers.
Right. Just like the Avengers. Very good. I just wondered, do we get all of our stories straight for Halloween here? I don't think there really was an answer for your
I was asking
question. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
So
asking you.
I'm gonna have to figure it out. And
Yeah.
I'm guessing and this is my retort to you. Halloween continues to change and evolve. It's not the same Halloween, and I'm saying in another 10 years, it's going to be something new. It just keeps on growing and growing. I will say this: my daughter's school, her elementary school, has banned it.
Mm.
No more Halloween. We're done, right? Because it just gets ridiculous. So
Yes.
it ebbs and flows, right? At
Correct.
the time, at the height of Halloween, there was all sorts of Halloween parties, blah blah blah. So who knows? But that junior high, probably that's when you start it. Stop.
Okay.
Avengers Assemble.
Avengers Assemble.
Yes.
So this is one of the many, many spin-offs of the massive Avengers universe, which has, been around for a while,
Mm-hmm.
but the Avengers has certainly become, I'd say, a societal focal point over the last, say, 10 years.
Yep.
Because of all the movies of the individual characters and the assembled characters. And I would have to imagine that there are more coming.
Yes. Well, recently they released Guardians of the Galaxy cartoon.
Okay.
Right. So that's their latest like foray into the cartoon realm.
Now, you are much more of the comic book guy than I ever was.
Sure.
But I know enough to know that there have been multiple spin-off combos, different versions of reimaginings of various characters. And this even goes back to when we were younger. There have been cartoon shows all the way through. So this isn't the Avengers show. There's more.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also cartoons featuring the individual characters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always kind of hard when you're talking about an entire franchise. And we've had some of this with, say, Star Wars, but not nearly as many offshoots, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there is a comparable, just sort of say franchise in terms of the number of sort of shows and spin-off shows.
Sure. Don't say that. The DC universe. So Warner Brothers has been doing this for years.
But I mean, in terms of cartoon shows.
Yeah. Like Teen Titans Go is one we watched, right? It's just a spin-off of
the Batman franchise.
The Batman, the animated. They have the Adventures of Superman. They have Justice League. They have this whole.
Right.
DC's been doing this for a long time, since the 90s. It was all based on Batman, the animated series, and before that, obviously the Super Friends.
Super Friends. I remember the Super Friends. Hanging out at the Hall of Justice.
Yes, absolutely.
That was the place to be. If they made the Hall of Justice today, I think you would probably have like an espresso bar, wouldn't it? Don't you think? Cappuccino machine or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that, but okay.
Okay, so this particular interpretation of the Avengers is sort of your standard characters from the latest movies.
Yeah, so I would say that Avengers Assemble is a little bit of a take of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but a lot of the cartoon spin-offs that they've been doing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe have not really had any continuity with the films.
Okay.
But it's sort of like, hey, if your kids like this, then this is something that we're offering them in cartoon form.
Well, and this has sort of a feel of the old Super Friends.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you have your standard, you have the Avengers, you have Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk, and Black Widow, and Hawkeye, and Thor fighting against, and Falcon. Fighting against a group of villains.
Led by Red Skull,
and I honestly don't know the characters. I don't think it really matters.
They call themselves the Cabal. Right, so the Cabal is
They are the Legion of Doom.
Correct. They're the adversaries to the Avengers.
So, from watching this one episode, we watch one episode, as we always do, and we should offer the caveat every once in a while that we know that watching one episode leaves us open to missing out on certain types of plot points, certain setups, that sort of thing. But we're trying to replicate what parents may face when they just run into a show or are presented with a show by a child, particularly when it is partway through. And as we've discussed before, with online streaming, with Netflix, with all this stuff, kids have the opportunity to watch an entire series. They can go back to the beginning, whereas when you and I were growing up,
it was reruns or whatever.
Right, we had TV. But if you missed the weekly episode, you missed a weekly episode, and you weren't going to pick it up again. So, in watching this one episode, it is serialized in that there is an ongoing plot, but it also has sort of the good guys are going to be hanging out, and the bad guys are going to come up with a plot, and they're going to try to beat up the good guys, and the good guys are going to thwart them at the end of the episode, and then there's going to be a tease for the next episode of what evil thing is going to happen then. I mean, it's Pinky in the Brain, trying to take over the world.
Yeah, I would say that in this case, so the Cabal is doing whatever they want to do. But they see that the Avengers pretty much always get in their way. So now the idea is to break the Avengers so that the Avengers can't get in the way of whatever nefarious plot they may have.
Correct. Did you enjoy this?
Yeah, if I was...
I mean, you're a fan, and we've talked about this before, that when we're fans of things, it can be hard to separate out completely.
Yeah, totally. We've talked about this before, and I'll change how I've said this before. Usually I relate it to a cartoon, but I don't find Goonies appealing anymore. It's not one of my favorite movies, but as a child, I absolutely love Goonies. I couldn't stop watching it. It was a fantastic movie. But as an older, middle-aged guy, I find it boring. Like, it's not funny to me. It's not interesting anymore. Right? And that is always kind of what happens to me when I'm watching the show. I'm like, how engaged do I want to be? And not only that, but as a parent, I already have an adult Avengers to watch, which I already enjoy. I have the Marvel Cinematic Universe built for me already.
Yes.
So, I'm kind of already making comparisons like Red Skull would never do that, or Captain America would never say cheesy things like that, or, Tony Stark is kind of always Tony Stark, but a little less snarky, right?
Correct.
Hulk in this cartoon version actually talks quite a bit, is a little more interactive, right? So there's always different variations, but I think it's just to be more of a safe environment for kids to watch, right? Hulk's not just mindlessly going and beating things up. He has some control. Thor is Thor, and he's just heroic. Actually, the heroes are really heroic, with the exception of Hawkeye, who's a little bit snarky, which is funny in comparison to the Hawkeye that's in the cinematic universe, who is a little bit more of the glue that holds the team together. All that to say, I try to reel myself in. As a 13-year-old, would I like it? Yes, I think I would, because I think there's enough creativity going on in the show. Like, there is a pretty significant twist in it. So to be honest with you, the villains come up with a plan to defeat the Avengers in some capacity, and the twist is it works. Right? The villains won the show.
For a while, yes.
No, they won the show. They got what they wanted. Did you not watch the end of the episode?
Well,
there?
I didn't watch the episode. Yeah, they did what they wanted, but you know where this is going to go.
Yes. Well, I don't know. But as a kid, I wouldn't know. It's one of the reasons why I love Star Blazers so much. I have the same problem with Star Blazers. It's not very appealing now. But I didn't know if they were going to get the Cosmo DNA back to Earth. I just didn't. And as a kid, thought, wow, the villains are really winning. And there's a little bit of that in this show. Like, it's pretty clear that Red Skull came up on top this time. And I liked that the villains figured out the reasons that the Avengers succeed is because of trust. And so the villains actually try to work on trusting each other to execute in a plan to beat the Avengers, because the Avengers just have trust in spades.
Except that particular plot point eventually works against them again, because they struggle with being the good guys.
Right. Well, they struggle with trusting versus being selfish, right?
Right.
Which is actually not a bad lesson. It's not a bad teaching point, right? If you're selfish, if you're not willing to work with the team, then ultimately your team is probably not going to succeed. From time to time it might, but the reason the Avengers are so strong is because they work continually together and they recognize each other's strengths.
Sure, but it's also, I don't know, plot points are so simple sometimes with these shows. It's sort of like, these are the good guys, and they're the good guys because we've told you they're the good guys. And these are the bad guys because ultimately they're selfish. even though,
Right.
even though, yeah, if you dig at, if you dig with any depth into the Marvel universe, you know that all the good guys have issues.
Yes, but actually, some of the bad guys are pretty benevolent.
Right, and so that's still just a very, very simplified message for the kids.
Well,
Let
11
me
or
ask you
12,
this.
11 or 12. I mean, right?
Okay,
We never
so-
had this. We had never had this kind of depth on GI Joe. Just say that.
Not back in the day. No, we did not. So
No.
let me ask you this: you said 13, you said 11 and 12. What is the appropriate age? Because that's always the question with a show like this. It's
To be-
violent,
Yeah.
right? It's quite violent in terms of basically what they do throughout the entire show is they encounter each other at various points. They smash each other around.
Mm-hmm.
The most violent, and I can remember this even from when we were kids and shows and that sort of thing, bad guys always seem to have this propensity to knock good guys unconscious but not kill them
Sure.
in cartoons, which we understand for obvious reasons. But that's just always sort of, it makes you chuckle now as an adult. You're like, the good guy's unconscious. How about you just finish him off and then you have one less to deal with?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you see this in terms of appropriate age?
I'd say it's a tween. It's a tween show. 11, 12, 13. I'm going to stick with that. I do.
Okay.
So
what about, so if a 8-year-old wants to watch this?
Well, it goes back to some of our previous conversations and saying that, it's trying to keep some of that innocence. I would say, with the amount of beating up, smashing up, I mean, it's tough for these super action hero shows to always come up with a peaceable solution.
Correct.
And then you just talk about the nature of boys in general. I wish it wasn't this way, but man, there is just something appealing about watching people beat each other up. Right?
Yes. Well, it is a standard formula that's been used for a long time.
And I'm not saying, boy, we should just submit to that natural desire, right? Jeez, sit these kids down and watch some good violent cartoon. It'd be good for them, right?
Let's have them sit down and watch them negotiate with each other.
That's right. They probably wouldn't watch it then either, right? And I don't know, right?
Yeah, I mean that's always a dilemma because you know what you're going to see every single week.
Yes.
You're going to see there isn't going to be a Avengers Christmas party episode.
Oh, I wouldn't. I know.
Okay, maybe
I
there
know.
is. Maybe there is going to be an Avengers Christmas party episode.
I can tell you right now, our comic book stores right now, they're lining up for special Christmas episodes for sure.
Okay. So if there is an Avengers Christmas party episode, the bad guys are going to show up and flip over the punch bowl, and they're going to get in a big fist fight.
Right.
At some point, right?
Yeah, no, because they don't trust the Avengers, and the Avengers don't trust them, and they're not a team, so that means they had to hate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found, to your point about, and we've said this before when we look at different things, when you're an adult looking at this, you have to be honest and say, okay, this is not necessarily targeted at me. This is not about my entertainment value, even though studios know that adults watch cartoons, either with their kids or just because they enjoy watching cartoons, or college students, young adults who just sort of want to relive their childhood, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I did watch this, and I don't know, I just didn't find it that compelling.
I think one of the best statements that you've ever made on this show is asking, is it edifying?
Yeah.
Is this show edifying? And I always try to find these points, and I'm saying that, well, there was an interesting twist. The villains won the show, so that's interesting as far as entertainment value is concerned. And to be honest with you, you're right. It's a black and white show. The heroes are heroes. The villains are villains. They are.
Next episode, they're going to get together and fight again.
Yeah.
And one of them is going to take something from the other. The next episode may be that the good guys get back what the bad guys stole the previous episode.
Good versus evil.
Yeah,
right?
Good versus evil. Which, again, okay, that's fair, and we've talked about this in a previous episode about desensitization, and is this good for people to sort of understand? And I don't know. I don't want to get into a whole other subplot of things, but it does sort of create in a kid's mind the sense that there always has to be like a bad guy. And the only reason that they're a bad guy is because we've been told that they're a bad guy. That's it. Not anything about their depth, not anything about their ambition, that sort of thing. It's like the good guys go to work every day and they pay their taxes, and the bad guys beat up the people when they come out of work and take their paychecks.
Right.
And so, yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into a broader sense, but I think that my wife is fond of saying that everybody believes they're wearing a white hat. But the truth is that
statement.
there are villains out there. There are people that just are not on the side of doing the right thing.
Well, and also we have to keep in mind that this, like many others, is kind of a gateway drug to the movies, to maybe a more mature form of.
I mean, the next step here is, hey, maybe we could watch S.H.I.E.L.D. or watch.
Right. Watch the movies, which again also are violent, but also include elements of sensuality, more adult themes, that sort of thing. So I think you have to be careful as a parent when you're introducing your kids to this universe, because it is a universe.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a big universe, and there are a lot of spin-offs, and I'm certain, and again, I don't know this, but you could probably echo this, that when you get into the comics, then you're getting into a whole bunch of other stuff, and probably some darker themes, and probably some darker interpretations, and that sort of thing of what you've got here. So,
Yep. It'd be interesting to the conversation that you and I are having right now. I believe is the conversation that parents should be having with their kids, especially entering into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. To sit down and say, when you watch this show, what are you getting out of it? Well, I'm just entertained, Mom. I really like it. And I'm like, the discussion that you and I just had is the discussion I think parents should make.
Right. Tell me about this show.
Yeah.
What'd you see?
Yeah. And then it might be actually also interesting to then, as the parents say, I don't think you're getting anything edifying out of this show. When you're walking away from this, it's nonsense for you, right? Depending on the kid. Although I can't say that Avengers Assemble is gonna vault somebody to the presidency of the United States, right? Like, I got so much from that show, right? But it'd be
learned about leadership and about teamwork, and yeah.
But it'd be interesting to say as a parent, like, how, and maybe it's more quantifiable to say, well, you are watching 4 different Avengers shows right now. Do we really need to heap on another one, right? Or you have a tendency to watch a lot of these shows. What is happening for you as you're watching? Like, you could kind of build a pattern and say, I just don't know if just watching one more of these shows is going to be all that fantastic for your head. Right?
Correct.
I mean, it's just, because we could just say, this by itself, pretty benign. This compounded with 7 other shows that you're watching, who knows, right? How much junk can you put in that kid's head?
Well, and chances are, if you are into this type of a show, you will watch the rest of them because there are other options.
Well, that's what happened with me with DC Comics, and that's why I had to leave my comic book habit behind, was that it was strictly at one point just Superman. But then Superman had a crossover with Batman, so then I had to pick up Batman. Well, then Superman and Batman are both a part of the Justice League, so I picked up Justice League. And it just went on, so on and so forth, to the point where it's like, I have just got this huge stronghold of comics that's just sucking my life away. I was just way too much time spent on comic books.
Right.
And actually, at the end of the day, I gave them all away.
You gave them away?
I did.
Wow.
I did. It was a big thing for me.
That could have paid for your college education for your kids.
You know, I have checked on some of the titles that I gave away. No.
Could have at least sold boxes of them. Box of cartoons.
I walked into a comic book store and just gave them away. I was like, just take them off my hands because this is too much for me. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Well, that was.
But I think it's a consideration for how much of this content you want to fill in and exist in.
Indeed.
There you go.
You can follow us on Twitter. Parent Mistakes. And you can like us on Facebook, Parenting Mistakes.
Please like us.
Yeah, please like us.
We're very likable.
Or critique us. We can take critique too.
Yeah, the other thing we keep on looking for is recommendations. We are more than happy to watch whatever you want us to watch.
Within reason, of course.
Yes.
So.
Wait, sorry. Yeah,
yes.
Right. Thank you for putting that caveat on there.
Yeah, that caveat.
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
All right.
Happy Reformation Day.